We're all interacting with these amazing AI tools every single day, right? From chatbots to art generators, they can feel like pure magic. But behind that magic, there's a massive and often totally invisible human effort making it all work. So let's pull back the curtain and see what's really going on. Every single AI model out there starts by learning from data. It's the absolute foundation for everything it can do. But that makes you wonder, right? Who's actually creating that data? Who is teaching the machine? Because whoever that teacher is, their choices are going to shape how that AI sees the entire world. Okay, so to really get this, we've got to talk about large language models, LLMs. They're pretty much the engines driving this whole generative AI explosion. But here's the thing. These super powerful models are absolutely nothing without the gigantic data sets they're trained on. And understanding where that data comes from is the real key to understanding the AI itself. And, this is where things get really tricky. The people building these AIs are facing some huge challenges. I mean, every single decision they make, what data to include, what to leave out, how to label it, all of that has a massive downstream effect on how the AI will actually perform out in the real world. So what we're really saying is, this isn't just some technical task, collecting ones and zeros. It's about recognizing that there's a deeply human element that's shaping these datasets from the very, very beginning. And that human element, it actually has a name, and it's something we really need to talk more about: data work. This is that hidden layer, that invisible human influence that is truly building the AI systems we use. So what is it exactly? Well, data work is all that day-to-day human effort. The collecting, the cleaning, the sorting, the managing, all the stuff that goes into creating the data sets that AI models learn from. When you boil it all down, it's a deeply, deeply human process. And here's the crazy part. Even though this work is the absolute bedrock of AI development, it's so often overlooked, it's undervalued, and sometimes it's treated like it's completely invisible. But its impact? Well, it's huge. The thing is, every single part of this process involves these really complex decisions that are both social and technical. Just think about it for a second. When someone decides on the categories for a data set, they're not just making a list. They're literally deciding what matters and what doesn't, what gets represented and what gets ignored. That right there is a perfect example of how human choices directly build an AI's worldview. So that leads to a pretty big question, right? What happens when this invisible work goes wrong? When it starts to reflect the same imbalances we already have in society, we run into a massive problem with how the AI sees the world. The hard truth is, most datasets that we use to train AI systems, they just don't represent the world equally. Not even close. They have these huge gaps, and they lean heavily towards certain regions, certain languages, and certain cultural perspectives. And this imbalance, it's pretty stark when you look at it. You've got this huge overrepresentation of data from certain parts of the world, leaving these giant global gaps. A few specific languages totally dominate, while thousands of others are just left out. And a handful of perspectives get amplified while so many diverse viewpoints are marginalized. Take a look at this. The vast, vast majority of what these AI models are learning from is English language data and Western perspectives. And listen, this isn't just some tech glitch. It means the AI's entire understanding of the world is skewed right from the get-go. Okay, so how do you even begin to fix a problem this big? Well, one idea that's getting a lot of traction is kind of ironic. It's using AI to fix AI. This is where something called synthetic data comes into play. Instead of spending forever hunting for perfect real-world data, which can be almost impossible, developers are now using LLMs to generate totally new, artificial data. The whole idea is to fill in those gaps and maybe even correct some of those imbalances. But you can't just flip a switch. It's actually a really careful process. First, you start with some seed data. Then you have to write very specific prompts to guide the AI's generation. After that, you fine-tune all the parameters to control the output. And finally, and this is crucial, you have to refine everything and document every single step you took. But of course, it's not that simple. Synthetic data isn't some magic wand you can just wave. It actually creates a whole new can of worms, a new set of responsibilities we have to think about. And maybe the biggest challenge of all is traceability. I mean, if you generate a massive data set with an AI, but you don't keep perfect records, it becomes impossible to trace where that data came from. You can't see how it was changed or really understand its role in the final model.
It's kind of like building a black box inside of another black box. It's a real problem.
So this new way of doing things, it demands a whole new level of documentation. For every single synthetic data set, you need detailed records of the seed data that was used, the exact prompts for generation, and all the parameter settings. If you don't have this, accountability just goes right out the window. So, as AI keeps evolving, our approach to building it has to evolve too. Let's wrap up with a few key things to remember. First, it's all about quality, not just quantity. A great AI comes from careful curation, not just having the biggest data set. Second, massive scale doesn't automatically give you quality or diversity. And finally, we have to design these data sets with all potential users in mind, not just a select few. And all of this really boils down to one final super important question. With every data set we build, we are laying the foundation for the future of AI. So we really have to ask ourselves, and each other, who should be the architects of this future?